Hello people, I'm Tommy. I'm a 21-year-old gamer. I've played every violent game in existence, and I have never killed anyone.
Would you please sign my petition?
No way, you...
There are millions of gamers just like me, and we're getting sick of people like you blaming your problems on us. Ignorance causes violence, not video games. Man up and take responsibility. We outnumber you, and the people that think like you don't fuck with us. I couldn't think of like an intro, so like I had to like do that one comic. That guy talked about how gamers are like oppressed or some shit. Yeah, it's kind of related to the video, but like kind of not. It's old internet shit. Just start the video. The year was 2012, and life moved at a slower pace, yet felt all the richer for it. A 9-year-old Tommy Gowers would turn on his TV to a channel known as G4. He expected he'd get the usual educational programming of shows like a Ninja Warrior or Attack the Show, but what ended up being on would change his life forever. Because on that day, G4 aired their 5-part miniseries on the top 100 video games of all time. He didn't know it at the time, but this program would expose him to the world of ancient video games, also known as anything older than the PlayStation 2. I still do and will always hold this series in high regard. I loved this series so much as a kid, and it shaped the man I am today. But taking away the nostalgia, looking at this list again after all these years...
At number 97, NBA 2K11.
Oh, it is complete shit. I don't want to spoil the ranking, but they put Super Mario Kart and GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 uncomfortably high on this list, and that is just the start. Going through comments about this miniseries on old YouTube videos shows that even back then, people really did not like this ranking. So I think it's only appropriate to go one by one and expose G4's terrible opinions, while also giving you my own terrible and very brief opinions on the games they chose. I'll be looking at if I think the game is good, giving it either a yes, a no, or haven't played it enough to have any right to talk about it. And also, if I think this game should be on a top 100 video games list ranking back in 2012 and today, giving it a yes, a no, or about 1/3 of these games I haven't played, and some of them are really beloved. I know Mass Effect 2 is really good, I just haven't gone around to it yet. I am sorry. But anyway, let's get into G4's top 100 games of all time, narrated by Uncharted Guy. At 100th place, it's Pong. And yes, this game should be considered one of the 100 greatest games of all time. Not because of its engrossing gameplay, but because of its legacy on the video game industry. I'll also say that it being in the 100th spot is perfect placement, because if it wasn't in the number 100 spot, they would have put it in the number 1 spot. So you better be happy it's here. Number 99, Words with Friends. And this moment right here was where everyone agreed that this ranking sucked ass. If I may play devil's advocate and also sound like a crusty old 21-year-old, mobile gaming back in the day was way better than what we have now, and that's simply undebatable. And I'm willing to defend the inclusion of one of the mobile games chosen for this list, but Words with Friends sure ain't it. It's Scrabble, the board game that existed long before video games ever existed. It's a good game because it's based on a board game that's good, but should never be considered as one of the greatest video games of all time. Number 98, David Crane's Pitfall, one of the best and most recognizable games on the Atari 2600. Created by the very first third-party video game developer Activision, Pitfall is one of the very few Atari games that became its own franchise. Not a successful franchise, mind you, but the attempt was admirable. Pitfall is a good game, especially for something on the Atari, because, let's be real here, even back in 2012, not many people really cared about the 2600 anymore. So should it have been on a list in 2012? Yes. Should it have been on a list today? I mean, I'd vouch that this is the best game on the Atari, so yes. And I'd even put it a bit further up. But like Words with Friends, you're gonna start seeing why a lot of people back in the day really did not like G4's ranking. Number 97, NBA 2K11. Now, using our vision of the modern day, it's pretty easy to dog on this game's inclusion. I'm no sports fan, but I do think there are certain games in the sports genre that should be held in high regard. NBA 2K11 is not one of those games. It has nothing special about it, no one talks about this game, and if you threw it into a pile of other NBA 2K games, it would just be another NBA 2K game. But according to G4, Soulja Boy apparently beat Justin Bieber on it, so I guess it's got that going for it. Not a memorable game, and should it still be on the top 100 13 years later? No. Number 96, Guitar Hero 2. This game left an impact, no doubt. It led to a huge fad with big gaming accessories simulating playing music. Now, from childhood memory, I remember growing up in a dominantly rock band household, so I can appreciate what Guitar Hero 2 did. Good game? Yes. Should it have been on the list? No. Should it have been on a top 100 games list today? No. And that's because of two things. One, I liked Guitar Hero 3's catalog more, and two is another game that we'll talk about further in the ranking. Number 95, classic arcade game Burger Time. It sucks. Now, this is the part where I would talk about its legacy and whatever, but honestly, I'm not a big fan of this game, especially considering the real greatest arcade games of all time, Mappy and Centipede, are not on this list. But Burger Time is. I don't know what government lobbying led to this, so good game? No. Should it be on the list? No. Holds up today? Surprise, surprise, no. Number 94, Braid. Now, this is an interesting game, and our first indie game to show up. Time manipulation as a gameplay mechanic is fascinating, and this is one of the first games to take a crack at it. And after playing through Braid, I can confidently tell you that I did not like it. I know it's an early indie game and I should cut it some slack, but I just can't. The idea is interesting, but it feels like not enough was done with the concept. It's short at least, and there's no issues beating the game, but it just was not my thing. If you like the game, I completely understand, but 3 X's for Braid. Number 93, Star Wars TIE Fighter. Similar to an earlier Star Wars game called X-Wing, but now from the perspective of the Galactic Empire. Star Wars TIE Fighter is a fun romp and one of the earliest Star Wars games where it places you in the shoes of an Imperial. A badass concept and a good game to this day, should be on the list, but not in the year of our Lord 2025. Number 92, Galaga. An arcade game that deserves to be on this list. The poster child of the arcade space shooter genre, and one whose legacy has not been forgotten all these years later. I like the game, but it's not one I go back to all that much. But its legacy outweighs my opinion here, so it's got a place on the top 100 both then and now. Number 91, The Sims. Alright, I keep this very much on the down low. I rarely speak about this part of my life, but I fucking love The Sims. It is one of my favorite video game franchises of all time, but it's because of that love that we get into a choice that this ranking presents many times as we go forward. Do you pick a game because it's the first one in a popular series, or do you pick the game that left the most impact, or is just simply better? The Sims 1 definitely left an impact, but The Sims 2 did what The Sims 1 did, but better, and The Sims 3 did what The Sims 2 did, but better. The first Sims game is amazing, but I wouldn't put it on a list of the top 100 greatest games of all time, because I would just rather put The Sims 2 or 3, which also means for a modern list I also wouldn't include it, and I would vouch for The Sims 3 to fill that oh-so-important Sims slot. Number 90, Baldur's Gate 2: Shadow of Amn. When I originally made the first chunk of this script, it was back in 2022, and back then I had absolutely nothing to say about this game. And today, I still don't. But the big difference between 2022 and now is that back then, a little game called Baldur's Gate 3 wasn't released. So although Baldur's Gate 2 is considered a good game based on this old review I found after spending 4 minutes researching, it wouldn't be on a top 100 games of all time list today, but I can 100% guarantee you Baldur's Gate 3 would be, and it would be very high on that list. Number 89 is Left 4 Dead, and oh baby, I love me some Left 4 Dead 1. And I think it deserves to be looked at as one of the best games of the 2000s. But here's the thing, we have another Sims issue on our hands, with either the first game or the best game in a franchise. And although I love Left 4 Dead 1, Left 4 Dead 2 is in my top 3 favorite games of all time, so I would just completely replace Left 4 Dead 1 on the list with Left 4 Dead 2, which is pretty much how Valve also handled this game, so good game without a doubt, but I would not have put it on a top 100 list because of the existence of its masterpiece of a sequel. Number 88, Double Dribble. Any game that shows up on Family Guy is a friend of mine, especially one where the Family Guy team were too lazy to acquire their own gameplay footage and stole it from some guy off of YouTube, and then Fox copyright strikes the creator of the video for stealing the footage that they stole from YouTube. Anyways, this is a sports game I can get behind. Famous for the Corner 3 glitch, it's one of the earliest popular sports games. Good game, yes. Should have been on the list back then and today, absolutely not. And that's because we're going to talk about a way better basketball game later down the line. Number 87, Mass Effect 2. It's beloved, and I'm sure that I would love it if I played it, but I haven't played it. So, based on what the masses have said, yes, and yes, and yes. Number 86, Outrun, a classic arcade racer, but better than Mass Effect 2? Well, I guess so, since I haven't played Mass Effect 2. It is one of the most recognizable racing games of the era, and it's a good game, but it was one I had my satisfaction with for about 15 minutes before shutting it off. 85, Silent Hill 2, a true man's horror experience, and one that had the greatest butchering in the history of HD remasters. But we're not talking about the obsoleteness of that game, we're talking about the original true man's Silent Hill 2, and it is good. One I'd put further down on the list if made today, impactful, and all around a great experience. Number 84, Wii Sports. Now, I am very biased about Wii Sports. I smashed a television in that game's honor. It is a childhood memory, and I'd go as far as to say that the top 100 games of all time, if made today, should include both Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. Wii Sports being only at number 84, quite frankly, should be a violation of the Geneva Convention. It's a great game, should be on the list, and it should be at least in the top 20. And Wii Sports Resort came out in 2009, so how it got let off the list is bullshit. Number 83, the 2004 Ninja Gaiden. And thank God they chose this over the mess that is the NES version, because this Ninja Gaiden is hack and slash fun. I'm a fan of this game, and I would love to go in more detail in the future, but for now, it's a good game, it should be on the list then, and I personally would put it on a list in the top 100 today. Number 82, Super Smash Bros. Melee. Now, Melee is not my go-to Smash game, but I can understand the appeal, especially in the competitive space, because there truly is no other fighting game like Melee. I'm honestly surprised it's even on this ranking. Melee had been going through a pretty significant dark age since the release of Brawl, as it wasn't the most recent Smash game, and its competitive scene wasn't nearly as big as it is now. But talking about Melee as just a game, it is still very fun. I love collecting trophies, the adventure mode is fun the first couple times, and the event matches add a significant twist to the formula. But in the end, it's a great game, should be on the list, and looking at it today, it really is a toss-up if Melee or Ultimate should be considered the best Smash game. But for my money, the best Smash game of all time is Brawl, because I hate fighting games. Number 81, the original Resident Evil, one of the most comical games of all time. The dialogue, the tank controls, makes this game pretty fun, which I don't think was the game creator's original intention. It's the birth of a very popular franchise, but another Resident Evil game was put on this list, and it is one that is better in every way, so sorry Resident Evil, fun game, but simply outclassed. Number 80, Gears of War 3. This is an interesting choice because I did play the Gears of War trilogy back during the Xbox 360 Golden Age, but I never hear many people talk about this game as the best Gears of War game. It is my personal favorite, but I feel like the only reason this game was chosen over the fan favorite Gears of War 2 is because it just came out a few months after the creation of this list, and because of the moment in the game's story. The moment I won't discuss, because if you played Gears of War 3, you know what I'm talking about. It's my favorite Gears of War, but it's one of those situations where the objectively better game deserves to be on the list. Number 79, Psychonauts. I've been giving G4 a lot of shit, and we're not even a quarter of the way through this, but if it wasn't for this top 100 games of all time list, I would never have known about this game's existence when I was a kid. I love Psychonauts, and I owe that to this ranking. And I'd put the game way further up. Everyone should play Psychonauts, it's aged like a fine wine, and is one of the best single-player experiences out there. Number 78, Spy Hunter, an arcade game that I only remember because it's the music that goes... Other than that, it's a pretty standard shooter, just instead of it being in space, you're in a car. Fun for 10 minutes, but I wouldn't put it on the list. Number 77, Excitebike. And yeah, exciting, and on a bike. It's aged quite poorly. I would never go back to this game. NES Remix was the only saving grace, so no, sorry, no. Moral of the story, play Excite Trucks. Number 76, Blades of Steel, the most badass title you could give to a hockey game. It's a sports game, and it's on the NES. Not the greatest combination, but I liked it more than Double Dribble. But it's just so outdated that I couldn't play this game for long. Play any NHL game and you're sure to have better bells and whistles than this. NES, you can punch your opponents, and that's cool, but that just means I want a remake of this game today, because a realistic hockey game where you punch your rival team and it's titled Blades of Steel has a lot of potential. Number 75, Fallout 3. And yes, it's another Sims issue, but in this case, it's not debatable. There is no reason for a list in 2012 to ever choose Fallout 3 over gaming's greatest desert level. Fallout 3 is a fine game, but it is incomparable to New Vegas. Fallout 3, you're playing as some cave dweller, and Fallout New Vegas as a crazed mailman who will completely change the fate of the Mojave. Put New Vegas on the list, and it's a surefire hit right there. Number 74, Star Fox 64. The real man Star Fox, the best Star Fox, and the only good Star Fox. It's a big name on the N64, and one I've had my fair share of fun with. Good game, and belongs on this list both then and now. Number 73, Mega Man 2. The Mega Man series was guaranteed to get a spot on the top 100, and Mega Man 2 is considered the cream of the crop of the franchise. And that's probably because it's the only one most people beat, because compared to the rest of the classic Mega Man games on NES, this one is by far the easiest. It's a fun game on the NES, but I'm more of a Mega Man 3 fan myself, so I'd rather choose its sequel. Still, that's a solid choice. Number 72, Mortal Kombat. The bane of 90s parenting, Mortal Kombat is the biggest factor in why this birthmark exists on the corner of every video game. It's left its place in gaming history, and after all this time, I'd say it holds up fairly well. And when it comes to video games, I've said before the fighting genre is one of my least favorites, but the original Mortal Kombat holds a simpler form of fighting compared to the 50-something button combos you do in modern Mortal Kombats. I liked the first game, and I'd say it deserves a place on the top 100. Number 71, Wing Commander 2, Vengeance of Kilrathi, is a PC game where your lifeless character speaks to other lifeless characters and then attacks spaceships. This game is similar to the aforementioned Star Wars TIE Fighter, and I believe that TIE Fighter did the game concept way better, and is also Star Wars, so it's automatically good. It's a fine game, but not one I'd choose for top 100 material. Number 70. Speaking of Star Wars, we've got the original Star Wars arcade game, and this was one of the most engaging arcade games back in the Stone Age of 1983. You're in the cockpit of an X-Wing simulating the attack on the Death Star, and although the graphics look very outdated, I am a huge sucker for it. Vector graphics along with the Vectrex are such a guilty pleasure of mine, I love it. Definitely one that's earned its place on the list, but one that most likely wouldn't be on a modern day top 100 games of all time ranking. Number 69, dude, and it's Double Dragon. Starting in arcades, Double Dragon became an iconic NES-era game like Ninja Gaiden. But unlike Ninja Gaiden, I found Double Dragon to be way more tolerable and enjoyable. It's a beat-em-up that's main focus is taking a buddy and punching anything that moves, leading to the end of the game where you make it to the girl, and if both of you can make it, you're forced to fight your own friend. This is one of the few NES games that I wouldn't mind playing once every 10 years, and it's even better on arcades. I would agree with its placing, but when considering games like Double Dragon 2, I'm a bit indifferent if I would put this game on the list or its sequel. Number 68, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. A game so well known that you probably forgot there are other Prince of Persia games. I wish I had played this game when I was younger, because if I had, I would have loved it. The action mixed with the puzzle solving, it's one of my favorite types of games, and although I haven't played the game to completion, it's one whose quality cannot be understated. 3 yeses for this one. Number 67, and we've got a little game called Minecraft. Now, we have to once again take a moment and realize that's only 2012, and Minecraft hadn't reached its peak popularity yet, and had only been fully released for a few months at this point. The fact it's even on the list is incredible, and a testament to how good the game is, even as simple as it was back in the day. Not only am I giving it the 3 yeses, but I can guarantee you if a modern top 100 list was made, this would easily be in the top 5, maybe even the top 3. Number 66, Assassin's Creed 2. And once again, we have to think about this, because at the time, Assassin's Creed was still a fresh idea, and Assassin's Creed 2 was still one of the most beloved in the series. I can understand its quality, but sorry, I just can't click with Assassin's Creed. Even games like Black Flag I only kinda liked. This game should be on the list back in 2012, but looking at the modern day, Black Flag would definitely overtake it. Number 65, Unreal Tournament, and oh my god, look at those graphics! And you're telling me the Fortnite company made this? So it's your standard FPS and deathmatch game, big whoop, I don't care. You can tell that I'm from a very different generation of first-person shooter fans, and this game didn't really click with me. This game was the original Crysis. People bought the game for the graphics alone. And although I think this game should be on the list back in 2012, I wouldn't rank it anywhere in a top 100 today. Number 64, NBA Jam. When I said I was waiting for a real basketball game, this was the one. Not janky like Double Dribble, and not NBA 2K11 like NBA 2K11. NBA Jam is where the real basketball is at. And if I'm thirsting for a basketball gaming experience, I'll go down and turn on Wii Sports Resort Basketball. Or go outside and play actual basketball. But NBA Jam is a close third. Number 63, Wolfenstein 3D. You know how I said I come from a different era of FPS fans 1 minute ago? Well, throw that out of the window because I am quite the fan of Wolfenstein 3D. If Doom was the pioneer of the FPS genre, then Wolfenstein 3D was the game that inspired the genre to clown on Hitler. We owe it to Wolfenstein that we're able to blow off Hitler's singular testicle in Sniper Elite games today. Number 62, Sid Meier's Civilization 2. Nuclear Gandhi, ha ha laugh. And I'm also not a big Civ fan. I respect the Civilization series. The franchise walked so Paradox Games could run with Hearts of Iron 4 and Crusader Kings 3. It's got the historical importance, and I believe that warrants a spot on any top 100 list, so sure, good job Civ 2. Number 61, God of War 3. If I haven't been invalidated enough, here I must expose myself here and say that I have not played a single God of War game. I get that they are great games, and that the modern God of Wars are considered masterclass, but I'm just waiting for my time to get around to playing them. Although I can't give you personal experience, I can say that God of War 3 is a great game because this review from 2010 said it was good. Number 60, Contra. Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start. That's all they talk about, the Konami code, and that they need it to win Contra. So to honor G4, I won't talk about Contra either. Number 59, Maniac Mansion 2, Day of the Tentacle. I am shocked that this is even on the list. I never hear a single person ever talk about this game, and if anyone else was making this video, I'm sure they would disregard this game harder than I'm going to disregard Super Street Fighter 4 at number 56. But I am a big fan of Day of the Tentacle, and it's another game that I owe this list to finding out that it even exists. It's a point-and-click adventure, so you play it once and then you forget it exists for 5 years until it randomly pops in your head one morning. I love this game, and I'm happy it's here, but sadly, I just feel like it didn't have the impact to warrant being on a top 100 modern video games. I love this game, and I'm happy it's here, but sadly, I just don't think it had the impact to warrant it being on a modern top 100 video games list. Number 58, Ultima Online. This game deserves to stay on the top 100 list just due to the fact that the servers have been up for 28 years. Other than that, I have no idea what this game is. Number 57, Pokemon Red and Blue. This glitchy, outdated, no development time of a game is where it all started. As a big Pokemon fan, I can tell you that Generation 1 is far from the best Pokemon games, and I'd personally rank Gen 1 near the bottom of any Pokemon ranking. But these games did lead to Pokemon becoming the most profitable thing ever in history, and also led to the greatest DS game of all time, Pokemon Conquest, being made, so does it deserve to be here? I guess for how big it was, but there are many better games in this franchise. Number 56, Super Street Fighter 4. I don't care how good or bad this game is, I do not like fighting games. Number 55, Kingdom Hearts. You have to play as the Smash Bros. Character Sora as he fights the darkness with Goofy copyright and Donald Duck copyright on a journey to explore other copyright trademarked areas of the Disney Copy Trade Right Marked Corporation Properties IPs. But what do I actually think of the game? They sit on my shelf. Number 54, Gauntlet. You and your 3 buddies go into a labyrinth and fuck shit up. It doesn't get any better than that. Look, we're at a pretty rough patch of games right here. Once we get to number 50, everything will be so much better. Number 53, Deus Ex, a role-playing game. It's cyberpunk. I know this is a popular series, but I have little experience with it, and I didn't get into it. Number 52, it's Rock Band 3. Now, this is my territory of giant musical video game peripherals, and I've come to realize that Rock Band is just as middle of the road as Guitar Hero is. That's a bummer. Number 51, Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, and I'm gonna keep this one short. Yes, no, no, and that's because up your arsenal is the way to go. We made it to the halfway point, and we've left the zone of random games that either are cult classics or completely forgotten, to actual big names that are mostly recognizable. And at number 50, we've got the Blue Blur himself, Ogilvy, Sonic the Maurice Hedgehog. Now, the first Sonic game is a fine one to have here, but when you could have put Sonic 3 and Knuckles, or Sonic 2, or even Sonic CD, all games that are just Sonic 1 but better, it leaves a lot to be desired. Number 49, the real mobile game Angry Birds. Yeah, fuck you Sonic fans, Angry Birds win again! I would, without a doubt, put Angry Birds on a modern list of top 100 games. It's the mobile game that kicked off the gaming craze on smartphones and would lead to many companies getting their hands into the market. I love Angry Birds, and I'm sure everyone loves Angry Birds more than their own development studio, Rovio. Number 48, Tecmo Bowl. Good game? Yes, because my dad played it. Should it have a spot on this list? Yes, because my dad would say it should, but what my dad doesn't know is the existence of a little game called Backyard Football, which is the superior football experience. Number 47, Myst. A very boring point-and-click game that no one cares about today. You already talked about gold with Day of the Tentacle, and now you waste a spot on the list with this unintentionally horrifying slop. Do better next time. Number 47, Red Dead Redemption. Known by the Cretans as GTA on horseback, it is a work of art, what else can I say? And this is one of those instances where if this list were made today, I would put both Red Dead 1 and 2 in the top 100 because they are both phenomenal. Play this game if you haven't, it is truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Number 45, Metal Gear Solid. Another game that I really don't need to speak its praises for. You could put any Metal Gear Solid game on a top 100, and each would have a good reason for being there. Although it's a franchise that has a bit of an issue balancing its story and gameplay, it's good that when the story's the focus of the game, it's incredible, and when the gameplay's the focus, the gameplay's incredible. This game should be higher up. Number 44, Grand Theft Auto 4. This was the big GTA game on the market at the time, and GTA 5 wouldn't be out for another year, so I guess it should have been here back in the day. Although GTA 4 is my favorite GTA when it comes to filling up your star count and seeing how long you can survive against the cops, it's just that I think it sucks in everything else. At the end of the day, yes, it's a quality game, but if we're talking about a pre-GTA 5 world, then I would choose GTA San Andreas as my go-to GTA experience. Hopefully we'll see it later. Number 43, Quake 3 Arena. Unlike with Unreal Tournament, I have at least dabbled with Quake a little bit to know it's a banger of a time, but once again, classic deathmatch type games like this aren't my thing. I'm more of a standard Call of Duty or Counter-Strike kind of guy when I'm in the mood to shut my brain off and fire a virtual gun. Number 42, Ghosts and Goblins, the go-to game when someone my dad's age wants to talk about how gaming in the 1980s was the best because they haven't played a game in 30 years. I respect Ghosts and Goblins' existence to whatever extent that means, and it is an NES game that has history, but I wouldn't force my worst enemy to try and beat this game. And also, just play Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it's just better. Number 41, Super Mario 64. I'm shocked this game ranks so low because it fills all the yeses immediately. Great game, it introduced the world to a proper 3D gaming experience, and its legacy is still felt to this day and is one of the most thriving communities. I don't know why it's only at number 41. If this list was made today, I wouldn't be shocked if it was somewhere in the top 25 at least. Number 40, Space Invaders. Another example of a game with long historic importance. I believe it's one that should be included, as it is another very important gaming that shaped the newly forming video game industry, but I'd put it much lower near Pong. Number 39, we've got Tony Hawk Pro Skate. Now, I swore off talking about these games, so I'll be quick. I was just slightly too young to experience these games at their peak, and as somebody who never gave a rat's ass about skateboarding, I do not care. Number 38, Super Metroid. This game is considered one of the greats of the Super Nintendo, with its huge labyrinth of a map, dozens of hidden secrets, and just all-around great gameplay and environments. I'm glad I waited till I actually played Super Metroid, because holy shit, yes, 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 and I'd even put it higher. Number 37, Halo Combat Evolved. One of the most groundbreaking titles in the FPS genre, and the game that put the Xbox on the map. It's a fun single-player experience with loads of different weapons, enemies, and environments. Other than that, I feel this title gets outclassed nowadays by another game in the series that we'll see in the near future. Other than that, highly recommended on my part, just so you could truly appreciate games that came after it. Number 36, Batman Arkham City. I am not a superhero fan. I never liked DC or Marvel growing up, so when I tell you Batman Arkham City, a superhero video game, is one of the greatest games of the Xbox 360 generation, you should say, damn, okay, maybe that game is alright. I had so much fun with Arkham City that my only issue with it after beating the game was that it wasn't longer. Number 35, Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I wish I had more time with this game because I know it is just an incredible game. This was Castlevania at its peak, as after this game was released, we would get... Other than that, it is a staple of the PlayStation 2 and one of the best third-party games on the system. 3 cheers for Symphony of the Night. Number 34, Counter-Strike, the classic multiplayer FPS experience. Counter-Strike's a solid game that I have wasted my life playing. Fuck you, Counter-Strike, you made me a gambling addict, my wife left me, and then I used the child support money to buy cases. I can't imagine my life without you. Number 33, Final Fantasy VII. One of the most iconic RPGs of all time, and the most beloved game in the Final Fantasy franchise, to the point where people say this game is overrated. And as somebody who loves RPGs but isn't a big Final Fantasy fan, you know what, I'll say it. Final Fantasy VII is one of the greatest gaming experiences I've ever had, and it deserves all the praise it gets to this day. It is a fantastic world that just grabs you immediately, a great job of mixing serious and silly. Final Fantasy VII is one of the top tier games. I would put this way higher up on the list. Number 32, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Now, I've been criticizing a lot of the older video games on this list, but Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Is not one of them. It is the single best game on the NES. It's got the NES era challenge, but in a way where you just want to get back up and try over and over again. People have been able to beat this game while only listening to sound cues, while blindfolded. If your game can do that, it's got a spot among the greats. Number 31, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Now, G4 has been on a roll with games that Tommy likes because I love Skyrim. I own multiple versions of Skyrim. I restored the Thieves Guild to its former glory, so you know I've gone through hell and back in order to tell the tale. Out of any game I've played, I've spent most of my life within the province of Skyrim. After well over 50 playthroughs, I've certainly got my fix on this game for one lifetime. And all it took me was 2 playthroughs of Fallout New Vegas for me to realize that Skyrim was a great game, but not a phenomenal one. Still, it's got a spot in the top 100. Number 30, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Now, I know this is one of the most loved versions of Street Fighter 2 for some reason, and I know it's a popular game for some reason, but I don't get fighting games, so don't ask me. Number 29, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, as a big Star Wars fan, you would think I have a lot to say about this one, but I don't. For the past 7 years, I have been in this constant loop of starting a new game, playing all the way till I get to Tatooine, saying, this game's great, I'll pick it up again tomorrow, and then never do. The day my brain decides to finish KOTOR will be the day Super Mario Kart is considered the best Mario Kart. Number 28, Super Mario Kart. Are you kidding me? Super Mario Kart was the best Mario Kart game when it was the only Mario Kart. Once 64 came out, it was all over for that game. Awful controls, similar track design, half the screen taken up by a giant map. No sane person, even back in 2012, was defending Super Mario Kart as the best Mario Kart. I don't even like 64 all that much, but it would make so much more sense over Super. It might have been the first, but it was indeed the worst. Number 27, Chrono Trigger. It's an RPG on the SNES that I was playing on my PC, but then my PC exploded and I lost my save file. I will go back to this game someday, but based on the few hours I played, yeah, it was good. Number 26, Eco. Okay, so when I was making this script, there were 2 games that I needed to play in order to get real opinions on. The first one was Eco, and the second was a game we'll talk about later. And I am so glad I played Eco, because I probably would have stupidly called it a good game. Eco sucks ass. It is one of the most boring games I have ever played, and its only saving grace is it took me about 4 hours to beat. The puzzles are dumb, the controls are super wonky, I didn't care about John Eco or Ghost Girl, and this game has the audacity to call itself an action-adventure. The action is horrible, I never cared about the story, and I would never consider this a top 100 games at any point. Number 25, Grand Theft Auto 3. I'm still waiting for San Andreas to show up, but this game did put the franchise in the spotlight. GTA was now a big name in the gaming industry because GTA 3 lets you do whatever the hell you wanted. You could do the main story, or you could do vehicular manslaughter, or you could become a taxi driver and then commit vehicular manslaughter on the client you just dropped off. This is what the Founding Fathers fought for, goddammit. Of the 3 PS2 era GTA titles, that being GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, it is in my opinion the weakest one, but a solid title nonetheless. Number 24 is a Madden 2005. Get fucked, Sonic fans. Why is this here? I don't know. It's the same as every other Madden game, not that I would know what Madden games are like. But even then, why is this in the top quarter of greatest games of all time? That is a genuine question, I don't know why. Number 23, Halo 3. This right here ain't your grandpa's Halo. This is real man hours. And real man hours they were, because Halo 3 had everything. It had online, it had Forge, and most importantly, it finished the fight. And then the fight went on for a little bit longer than we thought, but back when Halo 3 came out, we weren't aware of the accursed timeline we currently inhabit, so along with Reach, this is the best Halo game in the series. Number 22, Panzer Dragoon Saga. And if you've spent 30 seconds in the game collecting space, you know the only reason people care about this game is because it's very rare. And during the discussion about the game, all they talk about is how rare it is. No one has actually played this game, and I'm starting to believe it isn't even a video game, just a case with some unreadable disc inside. But I still find it hilarious that the same reason people talk about Panzer Dragoon Saga today are for the same reasons why people talked about it 13 years ago. Number 21, Resident Evil 4, a fantastic horror survival game and the peak of the Resident Evil franchise, as it's a perfect amalgamation of horror and a hint of funny that makes the Resident Evil series the juggernaut it is today. Along with protagonist John Resident and his girlfriend Jane Evil, this game is neat. Number 20, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, the beginning of the greatest trilogy in the history of gaming. To me, Modern Warfare 1 was the weakest of the original 3 Modern Warfare games, but introduced us to the stories of Captain Price and Soap McTavish, two of the most beloved characters in the COD franchise. And as for the online, well, it's Call of Duty, so you know it's going to be a pretty good time no matter what. But it was the one that truly kicked off the entire franchise, and it demands respect for that alone. Not the best, but it is far from the worst. Number 19, Diablo 2, a 2000 action role-playing game developed by Blizzard North and published by Blizzard Entertainment for Windows, Classic Mac OS, and OS X. The game, with its dark fantasy and horror themes, was conceptualized and designed by David Brevik and Eric Schiff. Now, personally, I loved this game. Number 18 is Miss Pac-Man, and this is one of the most respectable games put on the list. The impact the original Pac-Man had on the fledgling gaming industry can never be understated, but this game is a slow, boring, repetitive hunk of junk. Miss Pac-Man is a fast, vibrant, better in every way, and true Pac-Man experience. This is one of the arcade greats, and although not as good as Mappy and Centipede, it is a very respectable third place. Number 17, StarCraft, a Blizzard IP that instead of knowing nothing about, I know almost nothing about. StarCraft is a strategy game where you must dominate the other player with good tactics and means of combat. That's it. I recognize this game's importance, but I took a good look at the gameplay, and if the strategy game doesn't involve a weapons triangle, I ain't touching it. Number 16, the titan of the FPS genre, Half-Life. I've already gone deep into why I love this game, even going as far as to voluntarily subject myself to the Dreamcast port. It is such an amazing game to sit down and play, and any shooter today owes its existence to the things Half-Life achieved. And yes, I know many people do prefer Half-Life 2, and I will say that it is a fantastic game, but I will always be a bigger fan of Half-Life 1. It is truly something special. Number 15, Donkey Kong. This simple arcade game where a jump man has to reach a lady while a giant gorilla is dropping barrels, and it was also the game that led to the rise of Nintendo as an arcade developer and then software creator. It's got its place in gaming history. Number 14, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, is easily at the top of my list of games I want to play, but haven't. I finished the first Uncharted and had a blast with it, and I've only heard good things about Among Thieves, as it's referred to as the best of the series. I have no doubt in my mind that this game is fantastic, and I'm sure it deserves a spot among the greatest games of all time, but as for Tommy's opinions, as of now, It's a game that exists. Number 13, Portal. Another Valve property and another masterpiece. Portal is such a creative and fun game, and my only issue with it is how short it is. Luckily, Portal 2 would be an even bigger masterpiece, and that's the game I would put on here over Portal. A fantastic game that you can enjoy in a quick burst. Number 12, Doom 2. One of the biggest choices in the first game of the franchise, or the best game in the franchise question. Now, with my limited exposure to early Doom, the short time I played both games, I saw Doom 2 as taking what Doom did and expanding upon everything that made the FPS Pioneer special. A great game to look back on, but in the modern day, I think there's 2 Doom titles that could definitely beat out Doom 2 in overall quality. Number 11 is a surprising one, because when people think about the best game ever made, this one is in the conversation a bunch. And that game is The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. This game deserves its godly status. It is very fun, even if I'm not the biggest fan of The Legend of Zelda. For the time, the exploration of Hyrule felt like a vast land with no end in sight, and the combat and puzzle solving is really fun for an early 3D experience. A landmark achievement for gaming, and one I'm surprised wasn't higher up. But now we arrive at the top 10 greatest games ever made. These games must be some of the most beloved, important, and all-around amazing experiences for anyone who played them. So let's take a look at number 10, World of Warcraft. A game whose legacy has impacted not only gaming, but pop culture with its massive online multiplayer, a very dedicated fan base, and a South Park episode. For many a years, I have tried to play this game, dating as far back to middle school. I would attempt to play this game, try it out for an hour or two, and realize it just isn't my thing. I could just be too young and I just wasn't there when the game was at its height, but this is a game that I don't like, but I think it fully deserves to be in a top 100 both then and now. Number 9, Shadow of the Colossus. So after playing Eco and hating it, the next game I played was this one. And I'm glad I played it because Shadow of the Colossus is fucking awesome. I loved just about every aspect of this game. Journeying across the land and slaying giant beasts. It's certainly aged and some of the movement mechanics are a little jank, but it was still such a lovely experience. When I talked about Eco, I said the only good thing about the game was that it was short. But for Shadow of the Colossus, the one bad thing about this game is that it's short. It's one of those games that everyone should experience at least once in their lives. It is fantastic. Number 8. GoldenEye 007 is a game that impacted kids born in the early 1990s, and that's it. It's an old, beaten-up hunk of junk that has aged as well as my chocolate milk drawer. It was a revolution to have a first-person shooter on consoles. The problem was the console that was on had a controller that looked like this. Even back in 2012, this game had no right being this high up. In fact, it shouldn't even be on the list. It is garbage now, it was garbage in 2012, and it was garbage in 1997. To the younger people watching, if your dad tries to tell you that GoldenEye 007 is the gold standard for the first-person shooter genre, show them a real FPS, like Redneck Rampage. Now that's one of the first-person shooters of all time. Number 7, Super Mario Bros. 3. Now, Mario 3 is the best Mario game on the NES. It is still one of the best 2D platformers ever made, but it's not Punch-Out, so who really cares? It should be this high on this list. It is a very good game, and it is one of the few NES games worth going back to today. There's not much that needs to be said. It's got both the historic importance, and it is still a really good game. Number 6, The Legend of Zelda. Yes, it started the Legend of Zelda series. Yes, it is one of the most important games ever made. Is it a fun game? With a guide, yes. Playing blind, absolutely not. I wouldn't put it this high up, but I think it still deserves to be on a top 100 list. Number 5, Tetris. And I might sound crazy for this, but but Tetris should be in like the top 3 at least. Tetris is a video game. It is the most video game that has ever existed. You know, you move blocks, you clear lines, you get a score, and you see how long you can survive. You don't get any more video game than that. Fuck you, GoldenEye 007. Number 4, asteroids. It's shooting and dodging vector shapes in your vector triangle. It is historically important, and it should be remembered, but it's just fucking shooting and dodging, and it's number 4, like, come on. Sure, Tetris is one screen, but that game is fun for more than 5 minutes. Number 3, BioShock. One of the greats. The setting, the story, the characters, the gameplay. I can't add much to the conversation on why this game is so good. It is a first-person shooter that holds up even today, unlike GoldenEye 00 stupid. Now, in the top 3 video games of all time, absolutely not, but I would put this somewhere around the top 15. I think that's pretty acceptable. Number 2, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. The second best video game of all time, really? I've always seen this game rank pretty high in the top best Zeldas, especially in a pre-Breath of the Wild world. But as time has gone on, there seems to be a lot more appreciation for games like Ocarina of Time and especially The Wind Waker, to a point where I wonder if this game would even be on a top 100 games list in the modern day. But alas, just like the original Legend of Zelda, its impacts on gaming were big, and it's still a fun game to go back to. And here we are. After talking about some of the most beloved games in history, like Words with Friends, NBA 2K11, and GoldenEye 007, we've reached the number 1 greatest video game of all time. We've seen a lot on this journey, games good and bad, but now it's time. Number 1 is Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. It's Super Mario Bros. I mean, yeah, single most important game ever made. It's fun. It's a God-dedicated speedrun community. It deserves to be here. So, that's G4's top 100 games of all time. I'm done. This list is certainly a product of its time. For every banger inclusion like BioShock, Shadow of the Colossus, and Wii Sports, there's a lot of dumb shit like Madden 2005, Burger Time, and Myst. There were more mobile games discussed than handheld games, which is yucky, and this list opens up a lot of questions, like is a game being a poorly aged pioneer of a popular genre really enough for it to be on this list, or should we only include games based on their enjoyment? Whatever it is, it shouldn't be based on the criteria that somehow got GoldenEye into the top 10. This list is outdated, but is a time capsule of a different era of gaming, and this ranking was one of my earliest introductions into retro gaming. And that is G4's top 100 greatest video games of all time from 2012. Now, this is the part where I tell G4 that they should totally make a modern top 100 video games of all time ranking, but I think we know the fate of that network, as in 2014 they died, and before G4 came back, I had made the original concept for this video all the way back in early 2021. So, from the original concept of this video to the video actually being made, G4 came back from the dead and then died again before I could even get this video created. That just goes to show you that if you don't include Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, you're fucked.